All right. Hey, this is Cap here with the Motivation Equation, sitting here with my partner Rags. Hey, Rags.
Hey, bud.
Man, what's the deal with all the commotion around this new movie? Have you been noticing all the hype and all the
I
going
have, and
on?
I'm just now getting a Help Warrior helpline call right now. I got to take this call, brother.
Okay. All right. So Rags is going to be tied up for a minute here as they run a hotline for children, abused children. And it could be for a variety of reasons. Usually, there's challenges at home, there's family problems, and many of them could involve sexual assault, abuse, things like that. So, I'm going to just stay on unless this gets terribly too long. But we have been, I'm sure, like everybody in the world, taking notice to this movie, Sound of Freedom, right? And it's about human trafficking, obviously, awareness around trafficking. You've seen all the videos. And if you haven't, keep scrolling because you're going to. You certainly can't miss it. And this is a movie that the actor Jim Caviezel that played the role of Jesus in the Passion for Christ. And he is now taking on a role where he is portraying a character named Tim Ballard, who was involved in investigating sex crimes for, I believe it was the Homeland Security. Anyway, can't wait to talk to Rags about this. Hopefully he can step back in. Hey, Rags,
Hey, bud.
kind of hanging on.
Timing was a little bit,
Yeah,
a little. God, what are you trying to do here?
yeah,
What are you, what are you telling me?
yeah,
I
yeah.
need to listen.
Well, he's not only telling us, I'm sure he's tugging on
Oh,
the hearts and
uh,
minds of literally anybody that has a consciousness and a heart for this topic of
that's
sexually abused, trafficked kids, and of course, your involvement over the last 15 plus years. What's your take on all this?
you're gonna have to let me settle down here a little bit. That was pretty tough.
Yeah. So
Um,
not
well, that movie has stirred a lot in me the last few days. I haven't seen the movie,
yeah, me
but I
neither.
understand the subject matter pretty well. Going
Yeah.
back to my law enforcement days in California and first responder stuff, and then the last 14 years working, with abused kids, including kids that have been trafficked and
Yeah.
horrific things that I can't even fathom. And what really gets me that I love is the fact that it felt very much alone in our mission doing what we were doing. There's just a few people that, like, you have the detectives that are working on it, and with the prosecutor working on it, and the child advocacy center, and we would get referred, and we would do protective details. We would do, I mean, even down to extractions. I mean, doing anything we needed to do to protect those kids. And it just felt like we were so alone.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't feel like we're alone anymore because of that movie.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I'm very familiar with the organization and the work that you do, and it's incredibly difficult to just as you're having a hard time right now, that the vicarious trauma, right?
it,
That
it, it,
you and everyone involved, the folks that are in all these different agencies and organizations around the world, but not only the vicarious trauma. Well, let's talk about vicarious
Well,
trauma.
the good example of that, and why I thank God for the gift of TME, is that call, was about a case a few years ago that was really, really horrific. And I hadn't thought about that case in several years. But that was a call from that child
Oh,
who wanted to know if she could get a new cut vest, that because she's an adult now and she has 2 kids.
mm,
And so I know we did some good because
yeah.
she wanted to help. She became she was a victim, and then
Hmm.
she was a survivor, and then she became a thriver, and she became a protector. And so now hearing her words, she is now a protector.
Well, I love you, brother. I know that the fight, the work that we do, the work that you do, especially with warrior kids, and you know, I think it's a time now where people are going to actually kind of wake up and listen to the extreme level to which this operation, these things are happening, because it's very easy, no matter where you live, to go about your day-to-day life, and it's another thing, because I think we become not us in particular, but many people for many reasons become desensitized to, there's a rape here, there's an accident here, there's some criminal activity here, and it's, we hear about an overwhelming amount of that kind of evil element in
If
our
people
world.
don't realize how close it is to them,
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
yeah,
And never in my lifetime have I ever seen kids more at risk. And and how never in my lifetime have I seen a large group of parents that are just not understanding
yeah,
how risky things are. And it may not be the stranger danger, because
right.
truthfully most of the times that they're hurt, it's with somebody they know or they're related to. But there
Mhm.
still is that stranger danger, and that comes from the internet. And we see
Right.
that all the time. And most of the kids we worked with, are also bullied. And that's
Yeah,
where the empowerment for them to stand up and use their voice. And when adults need to empower them and just celebrate that. If
yeah,
adults were to celebrate the children who stand up, use their voice to go move on with life, it empowers them to move through that cycle of being from victim to survivor to thriver to that protector status.
right.
And I can't stress that enough. But I want to say that I thank God for those guys who did this movie.
Yeah,
I thank God for the people that are out there fighting that fight. I thank God for the courage that they had to make this movie, because it's going to piss a bunch of people off. There's a lot of evil people everywhere, and I had no idea how prevalent that evil is. And anybody could drive 5 minutes in any direction. I don't care where you live, and you're going to pass a child that is going to be hurting that night.
yeah. Maybe you could repeat that statistics, right? Of the one in four, one in
One
six.
in four, 1 in 4 girls by the time they're 18 will be sexually assaulted. One
Yeah,
in 6 boys. When I first heard that years ago, I don't know if that were true, and I think it might even be on the low side,
yeah,
because it's what gets reported. And all of our cases come from the child advocacy centers. That's who refers cases to us. And I mean, I see all the handprints on the wall. You go in that building, and it's just it's just the entire walls are covered with handprints. Each one of those kids have a story, and those are the kids that were able to get out. Those are
Yeah.
the kids who were able to that somebody saw something, somebody, they're mandatory reporters or somebody did something, so that kid felt empowered enough to say something, and it just doesn't happen enough.
Hey, so before we go too far, because we can talk about this at length, what can people do? Where do they go? Who do they contact if they have any kind of suspicion something is off?
There's usually, I mean, call 911, call
Yeah.
911, find your your child maltreatment, helpline, or any organization that, do some research, make those calls. And if you want to get involved, I mean, that's after the fact. That's too
Right.
late. That
Right.
child has been that child's wounded already. But what you can do before those events is get involved. And if everybody in this country who really gives a crap about kids, if you care about kids at all, then do something, because
Yeah.
they're precious. They have no choices. And just call your local child advocacy center,
Yeah.
because they do amazing work. Call your local child advocacy center and ask them how you can help. And they will they will give you places and ways that you can actually make a difference.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if a few million people stepped up and said, you know what, I'm actually going to do something to make a
Right.
difference?
Right.
This plague that's upon us would be just damaged. I mean, it would, that infection that's around us everywhere would be, for the most part, cleaned up.
Yeah. It's a matter of uniting and actually, don't just watch a video, watch the news, talk about it, but seek to get involved and find how you can fit in, right? And that's definitely
Yes, and those people of faith, pray.
yeah.
And why I was so emotional is, we started talking about this subject, and then I get a helpline call that there's 5 people that answer this phone, and for some reason, well, for some reason, I know the reason, it came to me. It came to me right now at this time when we're talking about this,
Yeah.
and I could win the lottery easier than I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just affirms to me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and doing it with you, brother.
Yeah. Well, I think that for folks that for some reason may not have even heard of what's going on with the release of this film that was just released yesterday, um, search Sound of Freedom. You could search Jim Caviezel. You could search Tim Ballard, which is the gentleman that created the organization and what this movie is all about. Those simple searches, you're going to jump right in and see loads and loads of stuff from them. And then you're going to see the outpouring of literally millions of people that are getting involved, talking about this subject of human trafficking and how gross it is and how disgusting it is, and the fact that that it's occurring at the level that it is. It's literally mind blowing. It's hard to even fathom.
I've never seen anything like it, and it just, man, it gives me joy, and at the same time, oh man, it just stirs up so much. But the joy comes from the fact that there's hope,
Yeah.
that people do really care. There's enough people. I'm seeing it, massive amounts of people that are stepping up and saying, they're going to do something, and it gives me great hope that there will be something that'll be done. And I also, the work that you and I created over the last 3 years, for me, a lot of it comes from this topic. A lot of it for me
Yeah.
comes from this. A lot of the method, a lot of the motivation and the
Right.
passion for me comes from this topic. And I love you for the fact that you agree with me that the people who have been in this in who have been, swept up in this,
Yeah.
whether they're helping or they're victims, that we are going to give our program to them because we know what it does and we know it works, and we don't care about the money. But why you're so important to me, because you understand the importance of what we're doing and to get it in the hands of those people that need it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because I was just going to say, why not? Why don't we give what we have to people that need it? We believe everybody on the planet needs it, but these particular victims of human trafficking and all the things that go with that, I would say, you know what? Reach out to us. Send us a message, a private message. You don't have to even tell us your background, your story. Just tell us you want it, and we'll get you into the program. And you want to talk just about what the program could mean for victims, and this is direct victims, obviously, and also vicarious, first
Yep.
responders.
Well, you asked me about the vicarious trauma, and vicarious trauma is real. I deal with it, on a daily basis, and all of these people that are doing any of this work are experiencing vicarious trauma
Yeah.
nonstop. In fact, it will wear you out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been doing this 14 years, and it takes its toll, which is part of the reason why that I'm so passionate about what we built. But it what it does is it actually gives people, pretty simple tools to be able to escape some of those overwhelming things.
Yeah.
And it also gives an idea of how to set a course or path in the areas of life where you want to go. It helps you with your identity, so you understand, who you are and how you got there and what you're capable of doing and how
Yeah.
you can create that self that you want. And this program does that start to finish.
Yeah.
And the people that really and the powerful science behind it. It's not theory, it's not anecdotal stuff. I mean, the things that we do is very, very much based in neuroscience and psychology, and has been vetted by a whole bunch of professionals in that area, which isn't me. I just know the tactics that work to empower people um, to move on with their life and remove that fear.
Yeah. The word that came to mind, which we've never verbalized, is that it's really an opportunity for some healing, to be a part of the healing process.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a blessing, um, and it is. When you step up and you do something hard, and you do it, and it's something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
When you do that, it you are redefining who you are.
Yeah.
And every time you do that, you can look at yourself in the mirror, and it's a great foundation and a place to move forward and to grow. And as we talk about that EQ growth, no, I can't think of anything better than doing something with passion that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah. I love the idea of the science, and I love the idea of the process in which we go through to better deal, to cope, and really to grow and transform, right? To really shed some of these traumatic events in our life, to regain control of them. And it really is a great way, because you do get to rewire and Can you talk a little bit about alter ego? Because this healing and the rewiring, and at the beginning, you said that this person that you've worked with wanted to get a new vest, a cut, and how that works all together with this redefining of
Well,
your
yeah,
identity.
with kids, they've had no choices in what happened to them. And what we do when we first get a case, we get the safety aspect out of the way, so the physical threats and all that stuff, or so the kid, now it's time for healing. And if we have to give them a motorcycle ride to therapists, we work very closely with trauma therapists, and in what we do, how we approach it. We are partners in that, in the healing of the child. And our role is to empower them. And one of the ways we do that is we start giving them choices. And one of the first things that they get to do is they get to come up with a warrior name or a road name. In our biker world, it's a road name. And that starts that process, that they get to say, I can be anything I want. I mean, we've had the most crazy names that are little, 3 or 4 flowers together, and
Yeah,
salty biscuits. I mean, you name it. The kids come up with the coolest things. And when they get to do that, it's a choice. They start, they understand that they have the power. They've been empowered to make some choices and to move in a direction, and they start doing that. And we use transitional objects. We use a lot of clinical tools. And every minute we spend with a child, there's a clinical reason behind it. Every minute, every move we make, there's a clinical reason. And our clinical reason is because their brains are chaotic, revolves around getting them in, to get their brains calmed down, remove the hypervigilance, and the hyper anything isn't good. But
yeah,
the hypersensitivity and hypervigilance it creates and attributes to toxic stress. When a developing child is in a state of toxic stress, it literally can take years off of their life down the road.
yeah,
And we've got to get them out of that as quick as possible. And they're also not really teed up very well for therapy. So what we do is we really get them ready for therapy. And
yeah,
the therapist knows what we do. They know how we did it. And then the therapist takes them and they really get going and do what they need to do. We never go away. We stay in their lives as long as they want. We have kids that now have kids, lots of them, including that one
yeah,
that called. And and that, a big part of it is the alter ego. And the alter ego is that road name, because what not only did they come up with a name, but they also came up with a name of something that they admire, something that they like,
yeah,
and they are calling themselves that. So they're projecting that on themselves. And when they do that, that's just one more step in the empowerment. And they wear their road name on their little leather cuts. And we have leather cuts that are literally this big,
yeah,
I mean, little tiny things. And our kids come in all shapes and sizes and colors and religions. And, it doesn't matter. A child is a child, and we love them all. And we always will. And I used to not like people very much because of the work that I used to do. I just didn't like people.
yeah,
And then I didn't know that I had the capacity to care much. And God gave me the capacity to care a lot, to the point that I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of kids. You know, you know, 15 years ago, I didn't think I had the capacity to help one.
right,
But you know what? He gives you bandwidth, and
absolutely,
they just keep coming,
yeah,
and they just keep coming. But we need more help. We need more warriors.
right,
We need people to get out there, regardless of whether you get on a motorcycle and ride with me, or you contact your child advocacy center, or you donate money, or whatever it is that you do. Do something.
Yeah. And I think the word help in this scenario means, people listening to this, if you happen to scroll upon us, help by sharing this with other people. I think that the interesting thing about not just the human trafficking that's bringing all this attention and awareness to light is that there's so many people that have gone through various forms of trauma, adversity, that are struggling with difficulties. People that have been through catastrophes. When I was watching the videos, Rags, of people, some of the people that they recounted their stories, and it was just like what happened to you. I know I've experienced it, where you get hit by that trauma trigger, and there's a moment in time where time freezes, your heart rate is going up, you start sweating, you feel heavy in darkness, and helping people through that would be a gift. I think the ultimate gift for anybody. And I think people listening to this should realize that vicarious trauma is real, and there's no scale for that. Everybody's experience is their own, and everybody could use, basically somebody to come alongside them, hold their hand, and guide them through the healing process. And I think, simply sharing this message that we're getting out there right now, this conversation, and knowing that we're inviting victims to participate in a program 100% free. I think that's one way people can help.
Yep, and I have a strong message for parents and guardians. Few years ago, I don't know what the statistics are now. Anybody can research it, but at one time, years ago, there were over 1 million predators online at any given time. 1 million, and those 1 million predators were using the internet to search, and it was like they cast a big net, and they were fishing for children, vulnerable children. And I worked many cases where the kids connected with them, and they groomed them, and they would send them pictures, and they would get them, because these guys, they're masters. These demons are masters, and they're masters at grooming. They're masters at being not seen for who they really are.
Yeah.
They're in our schools. They're in our law enforcement agencies. They're in our churches. They get themselves into positions of authority and trust, and they're so good at it that I'm a pretty good detection. I detect things pretty well. There's been some that I didn't detect, and I know that people out there are not able to detect them either. So I want to tell you, parents, if your kids are on social media, what happened last December with AI now makes the efficiency of those predators times 100x more efficient. They're going to be able to get to more people. They're going to be able to do it more efficiently. And when you see that 85,000 kids just across the border disappeared in this country, and we have 450,000 kids outside of those that disappear in this country every year. So where's the 500,000 kids going?
Right.
Where are they going? They're not just running away and then disappearing off the face of the earth.
Right.
There's something extremely evil going on out there, and they are closer to you than you think. And if you allow your kids online with certain apps, they're really close to your kids.
Well, what you're talking about is awareness. Not only is the movie bringing about awareness, I want to kind of touch on that from a sociological perspective. And there's a lot of joking around the different generations, the baby boomers, the Gen X's, the Gen Z's, the millennial, all these types. And I'm wondering, we haven't talked about this, Rag, so I'm throwing you on the spot, but it's very interesting for me, Gen X generation, where we're the latchkey kids, where we were left alone. I mean, I would jump on my motorcycle with my brothers. We would head into the mountains and be gone, not just all day, but for maybe a couple of days.
Yep.
So do you think that there's, I don't know what the number is. I think I heard like 65 is the number. Like, just, there's millions of these Gen Xers, for example. I'm not picking on Gen Xers by any way. I haven't researched this. I don't know the particulars, but there is a certain group of people that are probably very, lackadaisical, not paying attention to, like, remember the messages that used to come on TV at 10 o'clock, like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. Where are your children? And you just said, where are all these people going? What do you think is going on where nobody's asking the question anymore, do you think? Or
Times have changed, but by the same token, kids are not necessarily out and about in the right way. I mean, you see some of that, but tough love is a pretty wonderful form of love. And a lot of parents and guardians, and you and I talked about, writing a book from our perspective, from my perspective as a biker and working in the mission I do. And we were both in the farm, we both grew up in farming. And so, the mentality of the bikers and the farmers, I think they have it right. That, you from a farm perspective, you don't go on your own timeline. You have to be prepared because Mother Nature will go on Mother Nature's timeline. So you don't get to procrastinate. You can't do that with kids either. You need to prepare. You need to understand the potentials. Doesn't mean you need to live in fear. In fact, you should not live in fear.
Right.
You should not, put your kids in that situation where you're scaring them all the time.
Right.
But, be vigilant.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared and you're vigilant and you're watching so they don't have to. But you need to stranger proof them in a way to teach them what boundaries look like, what appropriate touching is and is not.
Right.
And I'm amazed at how many parents don't do that. Instead, you let Hollywood tell you, how, what is appropriate for your children, or you let the music industry tell you what's appropriate for your children. And man, they're getting it wrong. You need to be the one that tells your child the right boundaries. And if you do that, they'll know when something doesn't look right or feel right.
Yeah.
But again, you don't want them to be living in fear all the time, because we want them to be kids. We want them to grow. And right now, kids are under the gun more than I've ever. I couldn't imagine how I have grandkids, and my grandkids, it scares me to death knowing that there's more predators after them than at any time in history, and they have more tools to do it, and they're coming at them in more ways than they ever have.
Yeah. This is a term that comes up from time to time, but there are many, many, many people that could basically say, hey, I don't know how to stop this generational curse, if you will, meaning, my kids aren't too far from how I grew up versus how my parents, and there's kind of this gap in knowledge. There's a gap in training, a gap in preparedness. I don't know how to prepare. I don't have the tool set to properly guide my children. What would you say we could do about that? We haven't talked about this stuff. This movie is just got
well, yeah. I mean, the catalyst was this movie, and I mean, I've been living this for years. You and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
My mission. You've helped kids over your whole entire life, and but it's I guess it's time to talk about it. We had a guest on our podcast, a few months ago that is a wonderful guy, Dan Nash, that's around all over the world, and he is training people in law enforcement agencies to recognize human trafficking. So there's a lot going on at the agency level. When I was in law enforcement, there was zero training around that.
Yeah.
We saw it, we knew what was happening, but it was, OJT, which isn't the best way to go. So
Right.
there's a lot of resources out there. Law enforcement's getting better. We've had other people in our world, in our sphere here that
Yeah.
are out working in the human trafficking area, and doing great work. But as a parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, there's a lot of resources. While there's a bunch of bad predators online,
Yeah.
there's also a lot of resources to help you understand what you can do and what you need to do. But I would say, first and foremost, love your child, empower your child, um, be the one that's vigilant for your child, so your child doesn't necessarily have to have their head on a swivel all the time. Teach
Yeah.
them the correct boundaries of what's normal and what's not. And if you do that, you'll be okay. But just know that a predator can be anybody and anytime, anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up Dan Nash. I hope people look up Dan Nash. We'll put a hashtag in this video for him, and it reminded me of Meghan Connor and her story.
Absolutely.
And there are so many countless people doing this difficult, ugly work, obviously very rewarding in the end. And I think the key is for parents that might be in a bubble and seemingly things are going well with their children, but empower your children, I think is a theme here. Empower them and love them, truly love them by being involved in their world. And don't be on autopilot. Kid comes home from school, how's school, and you don't even get a reaction. You're busy. A lot of us are overwhelmed from a day-to-day basis, from all the things that we have to do in our lives with work, etc. And I think the simple thing is to empower your children, love your children, be involved with your children, and look for ways to get involved in the greater public, in your community, in your neighborhoods, with your churches, with youth groups, with the YMCA. That's where I spent a lot of my time, was at the YMCA and working with at-risk youth children, because let's face it, we're kind of all at risk these days. Times have changed, like you said. So.
Yep. And so, there's a lot of wonderful people out there, Ben Owen and Kevin, and go down the list all of the wonderful people that are out fighting that. We have a member of our chapter that has a nonprofit that she was trafficked, and she's out teaching, and there's just, so many good people out there doing the work, but they all need help. Yeah. They all need help. They either need hands getting dirty, or they need money in the bank so they can get more people involved and help more kids.
Yeah, there's always a way to help, right? And some people you can get your hands dirty. I hate to do that, but dirty in the sense that just by donating any funds, if you're financially blessed with funds, that you're involved. That's you have. There's no. You don't have to be like in the trenches, in going to foreign lands and all that kind of stuff. You can get involved right here locally. I bet there's probably more organizations out there than people are aware of. There's probably more than we're aware of.
There's a lot of and my prayer is that, because it feels like the stars are aligning, it feels like there's a plan, and there are all these pieces to the puzzle are all coming together. And this movie, and then you see Mel Gibson, you hear some of the things he's going to be doing. And, these people are doing this at great risk to themselves, because this evil that is out there, people really don't understand. where that is. I mean, the people that we're dealing with here south of the border, some of the
Yeah.
most ruthless people that God ever put on this earth. And I mean, they do not value life at all, and they are going to do everything they can to protect their $30+ billion business, and they will not hesitate to use violence. So the best way we can put them out of business is get a hold of your leaders, get a hold of your senator, get a hold of your congressman, your local and state leaders, and use your voice and speak loudly. They need to step up and they need to solve this problem, because if Washington wanted to, Washington could get rid of this problem fairly quickly if they really wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's one of those items on the list that I think people became overly desensitized to. And it doesn't matter when in history, we always think somebody else will take care of it, right? Somebody else is going to go march on the Capitol. Somebody else is going to go to the PTA meeting. Somebody else is going to go to the city council meeting. Somebody else. And I think, it's so simple. It's as simple as an email. It's as simple as getting involved in social media. It's just the matter of picking up the phone or picking up your fingers and typing something in. So
yeah, I mean, send me a private message if you want to. If you need to talk to somebody about it, send me a message, and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction or do anything I can, to help.
yeah, I think that might be something that we do. Obviously, the work that we're involved in, we were already down a path of helping people deal with trauma and adversity and struggles in life. And when you're knocked out of balance and you're struggling, that's what we've been doing. So I would say reach out to Rags at themotivationequation.com. You can reach out to Keith at themotivationequation.com and communicate with us. If we don't have the answers, we will definitely find the answers for you if we can't help you. And if you know people that are interested, or maybe they're not even interested, they don't even know, they're unaware, but we want to give our program to them as a way of healing and coping in these very, very difficult times, whether it's recent or it happened years ago, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter. So, well, we could talk a ton more about this. We talk about it every day in different ways, different situations and circumstances. I just, again, plead with anybody that comes across this message, this conversation, that they just pass it along. Just pass it along. Let's keep the conversation going.
Yep.
Oh,
amen.
And get out and see the movie. I know neither of us have. There's no way I can't not go see this movie. So I hope to see this movie. And you know what? After we see the movie, let's talk about it.
I'm going to build up the courage to do it, because I can't tell people to go see it without me seeing it. I understand it pretty intimately,
Yeah.
but I can't tell somebody to do something that I can't do. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to take a bunch of guys on Harleys with me.
Hey, do that.
We're gonna bike her up and roll in there and
lock arms and go
lock
in.
arms and do it together, man.
Yeah, I heard that it's obviously it's not graphic. It's not going to catch you off guard, and it's not going to be all ugly. I heard a quote Jim Caviezel said, "There's laughter in there. There's just a great story." So I don't think it's one of those. I don't know. I mean,
I think everybody has to see it.
Yeah.
I think if you care about this country, you care about kids, you care about your own kid. If you care, you have to go see this movie.
Yeah. If you are a parent, an aunt, a cousin, an uncle, any kind of connection to a child, and it's not like they said, Rags, it's not what people think, like it's a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old. They're talking some pretty, I mean, just It's unbelievable. The
Well,
age,
the
they're 5
reality
years
is
older.
always worse than anything you can imagine. I can tell
Yeah,
you that from personal experience. I've been involved where there's literally infants being molested. So listen, just go see the movie. And here's the other thing: if you go see this movie, you're going to send a message. If you go, if enough
mhm,
people go, that's a message in and of itself. And
yeah,
Washington and Hollywood and music, everybody else that needs to be understanding of what is happening, or if they're perpetuating it, you're sending a powerful message by going.
yeah, yeah. I think that's enough said at this time. So
Thank you, bro.
I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm surprised that you got that phone call right when you did. So every time you and I get involved in anything, we get affirmations and confirmation and validation that this is something that needs to be
That's
done.
2 days in a row.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll talk to you shortly.
All right, bro.
Bye bye.